Hi everyone. I know a lot of you are interested in what's going on in LA, so I thought I'd offer a perspective on the wildfire situation here. First, for folks directly affected by the fire, everyone in Los Angeles is thinking of you. I think everyone in LA knows someone who lost their home. We see you, we hear you, and for folks outside of LA tuning in, you should know that the response from Angelenos has been incredible. Right away, there were spontaneous grassroots donation centers set up by regular folks looking to support their community, and that was followed soon thereafter by even more support from official relief organizations. I need to address something awkward. On Tuesday, January 7th, the neighborhood videos on this channel, specifically about the fire-affected areas on LA's west side, went viral. The Pacific Palisades video in particular on my channel went ballistic. My first reaction was to pull them down. But I started to think otherwise because on the one hand, there's a commercial purpose to these videos that we make. But there's another reason they get made. I want to show people how amazing Los Angeles is. And you don't delete something that could offer some perspective on how beautiful parts of this city can be. For the Pacific Palisades video in particular, I want people to see and learn what it was like. More importantly, I want to show what Pali and other impacted areas could look like again. We're going to run through a timeline. I'm going to show how things started and then unfolded over the week and the horrible creeping realization about the massive scale and unnerving uncertainty about the situation on the ground. On Tuesday at 10:35 a.m., I got a text from a client, a friend, who lives above the Comedy Store on Sunset. This would be the beginning of the Sunset Fire. This is the first fire in LA that I know of. It was small and didn't get a lot of attention because of the things that followed that were much larger. The text from my friend that accompanied the iPhone video said she heard 2 transformers blow 3 to 5 minutes apart, just a few minutes prior to when this video was taken. A first responder, a fireman, showed up a short while after hearing the transformer blow and told her to evacuate. She saw 3 fire trucks on the street and an LAPD helicopter overhead. When I saw the text, I immediately called her to see if I could help and get a sense of what was going on because it was super windy, much higher wind speeds than normal for Santa Ana winds. Let me show you the normal flow of Santa Ana winds. I'll take a quick step away from the timeline and we will return in a second. The normal flow of winds in LA start in the Pacific Ocean and move across the LA basin. That's why the air here typically has a little bit of humidity. But when the air blows the other way, the Santa Ana winds come shooting down from the Nevada desert and across Southern California. And in this case, they come flying through in the opposite direction, very low humidity, and they push the air out to the ocean. Just the opposite of the normal wind pattern. You know, a normal wind speed for Santa Ana winds might be 30 to 50 miles per hour, and this was different because the wind speeds in some places of LA County were gusting over 80 miles an hour. That's a force that's beyond any firefighting capabilities on the ground or from the air. So my gut reaction was this could be really bad. While we were on the phone, I was searching for more information so I could relay it to her. I knew she was in her car. I wanted to take advantage of my internet connection to look around. I found video of the same fire, but in an angle further up the hill from her. It was posted at 10:43 a.m. While we were on the phone, the first images of the Palisades fire came across my screen at 10:49 a.m. And then the image taken at 11:10 a.m., I saw images of the early progression of the Palisades fire, and the black smoke was ominous. Just so you know, black smoke indicates the burning of large plants like trees that have oils in them. White smoke is typically grass. My interpretation of the black smoke was that large, non-native plants were blowing up, and those kind of plants are located in neighborhoods. Doubly bad. So back to the Hollywood Hills for a moment, to the first Sunset Fire. At 11:22, roughly an hour after it started, the Sunset Fire was under control. But this next video taken by my friend in the Hollywood Hills shows the Palisades Fire now looking even more ominous. So this is from the Hollywood Hills facing west. The rest of Tuesday was filled with horrific images coming from Pacific Palisades. We could see massive smoke, indicating how powerful the fire had become. The problem was smoke obfuscated the damage on the ground and we couldn't really get a sense of the extent of it. All the local TV stations went into full gear with blanket, uninterrupted coverage. The whole city was able to watch this tragedy unfold in real time. Most reporters were set up in Pacific Palisades near the Pacific Coast Highway. The Pacific Palisades, the Highlands neighborhood, Lower Pacific Palisades, and the fire was burning kind of along this path right here. The media was basically where Sunset meets the PCH. I saw a live shot of a woman who walked down from her home because the cars were blocking the major streets. People fled so quickly that many had abandoned their vehicles, and then the roads got jammed and they were impassable. At the end of the live shot, the reporter asked the woman where she would go, and she said, to the beach, where the fire can't burn. A couple hours later at 1:42 p.m., I took this shot of the TV and sent it to one of my agents. It was the top of One Coast Condos at the intersection of Sunset and PCH. It's a building we recognize because it's fairly new. It's a luxury condo complex that was just completed a few years ago. It was hard to tell if the building was on fire or if it was a grassy hill behind it that was on fire. This just highlights how difficult it was to get a handle on things. Around 2 p.m., another live shot showed a lifeguard tower at Will Rogers State Beach. It was in flames. I'd like to think that the woman I saw earlier wasn't still on the beach. Her seemingly rational decision, the one I think we would all make, to head toward water and sand, was going to be impossible given the absolutely vicious winds that would push embers across the PCH, igniting anything organic in the fire's path. So toggling back to my friend in the Hollywood Hills, she returned home at 3:22 p.m., thankfully safe, and her home was unharmed, but with the power off. But the day was not over. At 6:23 p.m., the app I use, Watch Duty, indicated a new fire breaking out in the Altadena area, the Eaton Fire. This was a second major fire, equally devastating and fast-moving. It's hard to put into words the feeling that comes over you when you just know we are in it now, whatever it is. I can tell you that Tuesday night, hotels ran out of vacancies. Apparently, from the reports I got from people I know, some hotels were outright unkind, to put it gently. Others were welcoming. In fact, one even waived a pet fee for a friend, which was normally $150. Everyone Tuesday night was on edge, and everyone was charging phones and making evacuation plans. I woke up Wednesday morning to an ominous sky. The first thing I did was fire up my Watch Duty app. That was the first thing I did when I woke up, to see how far the Palisades and Eaton fires had progressed. I wanted to know if there were new fires. With these winds, anything was possible, and they were still moving across LA at a rapid speed. Here's a screenshot of the Watch Duty app at 6:55 in the morning. You can see 3 major fires at this point: Palisades to the west, Hearst to the north, and Eaton to the east. The blue dot in the middle is my location in the Hollywood Hills. Here's a video I took. You can see the wind doing its thing. This is facing south, so the smoke on the right is the Palisades fire smoke, and the smoke on the left is the one from the Eaton fire. There was very little sense of the devastation on the ground in the Palisades because there was so much smoke. It made aerial coverage from news choppers nearly impossible. But Jonathan Vigliotti of CBS News tweeted this at 7:53 a.m. Everyone who spent time in the Pacific Palisades knows this Starbucks. It's right across the street from Palisades Village. The area around it, just south of Sunset Boulevard, was just devastated. And God, it looks like Dresden in 1945. I think the images to me are just mortifying. This was not a brush fire. It was like a forest fire, the kind I grew up with in the Pacific Northwest, except this one was happening inside of a city. And it's so hard to convey the scale to people that don't know LA, but I can tell you that the crest of the Santa Monica Mountains right here, where the winds are coming down, being buffeted, and then flying over the ridge and swooping down to the ocean. From the PCH here up to that ridge is 6 miles, and the fire at this point was about 6 miles across, so kind of something like this. The force of the wind, in a word, could simply be described as overwhelming. Given the fluidity and intensity, Wednesday was just a lockdown day. This was a minute-by-minute situation. Same thing as the night before, laptop open, TV running, nonstop live coverage. Everyone's desperately trying to get a sense what had transpired as well as what was still going on. Everyone's job in LA on Wednesday was to keep their head on a swivel. Let's forward to Wednesday evening now. This is when the second fire named Sunset Fire broke out in Runyon Canyon. This was 5:40 p.m. I was watching TV, obviously, because that's all I did on Wednesday, when the camera was panning across the LA basin from the Pacific Palisades to the Hollywood Hills. I live below the Hollywood sign, so my eyes were immediately fixed on the red spot on the left of this image. Now, I hike these hills every day, and so I know there are no communication towers with floodlights or anything like that in the area where I saw that red patch. So I knew something was up in my neck of the woods. Runyon Canyon is 1.5 miles from my house as a crow flies. This isn't the first time I've had fires near my house. A few years back, just east of me, one started in Griffith Park. So there's some precedence for fires in this part of the Santa Monica Range. I was getting a bit unnerved, but perhaps less so than others since I'd seen this before. Just 5 minutes later at 5:45, I pulled up the Watch Duty app so that I could track it. The fire was spreading incredibly quickly. It seemed to double every few minutes. 7 minutes later at 5:52, television choppers were over the scene with live shots. Here's how it works in terms of fires. You get a notification that's either a voluntary evac notice or a mandatory notice. Voluntary is just like it sounds, less urgent. Mandatory means leave immediately. Some of my neighbors decided to leave Beechwood Canyon, and I was surprised at how far the traffic had backed up, about a mile up from the bottom. Personally, I felt pretty comfortable with the situation. I wasn't yet even in the voluntary evac zone, so I decided to stay put. The good news is Runyon Canyon was put down pretty quickly, but not before burning 100 acres. Given that it was the second day of the LA fires, there were massive assets on the ground and in the air to hammer this down fast. I stayed up till 2 a.m. texting with friends and watching TV before going to bed. Everybody was up. By Thursday mid-morning, my team of agents had been getting a lot of calls from folks looking for apartments and condos to lease. We were trying to put options together for folks, but the rental inventory was going fast. More on the rental situation in just a second. Thursday also, the smoke was clearing enough in several places that we were starting to get a fuller picture of the widespread devastation. This was the Alphabet Streets neighborhood in Palisades. It's just leveled. It was an extremely charming neighborhood with smaller, older homes surrounding the Palisades village. The weather reports was showing us on Thursday that the winds were going to shift, and by Friday evening, winds were indeed shifting, and then the Palisades fire began its encroachment on Brentwood's Mandeville Canyon. So what had happened is the first couple days of the fires, we had Santa Ana winds moving from the northeast to the southwest. And the Palisades fire, which was essentially here, had been pushing toward Malibu for the first couple days, following the winds, of course. And then Friday evening, the winds were coming back to a normal pattern, moving from west to east. So while that was offering some reprieve to Malibu, it occurred to me, well, that just means that the eastern edge of the fire is going to start moving east, which it did. This is the 405 freeway right here. And the evac zone indeed pushed right up against the 405. This is the 405, this is Brentwood, and this is Bel Air. Let's go to Saturday morning. By Saturday, much of the rental market inventory was leased out. Here's some quick information that could be helpful for folks. The LA County apartment vacancy rate in December was 4.6%, and even lower close to the areas where the fires were. California Penal Code 396 prevents any price gouging for most consumer goods, services, and leases. Median rents in LA just prior to the fire were $2,780 a month, so $2,780 per month. It was a little higher near the west side, near the Palisades fire, and about on par in the Altadena area, near the Eaton fire. What's not normal is if you see a property where rent is 10% higher than it was immediately prior to the declaration of emergency, that's illegal. I know that some bidding wars broke out, and there might be a loophole for landlords that they rent to the highest bidder. I'm not an attorney, but I think landlords are taking their chances if they go that direction. I'm a free market guy, but I'll gladly take a stand on this. Now is not the time to be squeezing extra profits from victims. Another thing that's normal, that if you're running across this trying to lease a property that you might not be sure about, 12-month lease terms are indeed standard. So if you come across a 12-month lease, just know that it's a common standard thing. So when I woke up Sunday morning, the air was surprisingly clear. This video shows the same shot of Beechwood Canyon in the prior two clips, the one with the smoke and the one with the traffic. This is what I would normally expect to see on a nice sunny day. The air quality looked pretty good, so I had a chance to go for a hike and clear the mental and emotional cobwebs out. The fires were hardly contained at this point, in the single digits for both the Palisades and Eaton fires. I think Palisades was only 9% contained at that point, but the air was so clear, and from hiking up to the Hollywood sign, which has a 360-degree view, I could see that air quality across the basin was pretty pretty good. There were no ominous puffs of smoke streaming from the east or west of me, so I didn't understand how could the containment numbers be so small when things looked pretty good. Well, here's what I learned about containment that I thought would be worth passing along. So containment refers to how much of the perimeter is surrounded by barriers like fire lines, fire breaks, or rivers, meaning at 50% contained, 50% of the edge of the fire zone is secured. It's not about the visible flames or smoke. In fact, fires can be visible with embers continuing to smolder within a perimeter even when a fire is 100% contained. What happens later when every last bit of a fire is put down, that's referred to as full control. So let's talk about where things go from here. I'm not in the prediction business, that's for sure. But here are a few thoughts. Obviously, recovery is going to take time. How long? Definitely years, perhaps decades. I mentioned earlier the rental market impact, but here's some thoughts on the near-term impact on the residential purchase market. Recent housing data showed that we were already in a tough, tight market with low inventory for single-family homes at 17,000 active listings. Right now, we're seeing estimated losses of 10,000 homes from the fires. In an already tight market, it appears that things will be even tighter. It's just too many people and not enough homes. It's too early to tell where prices are going, as new transactions will take 30 days or so to show up in the MLS data. Unlike the lease market, I just don't have reliable data and insights into the current purchase demand yet. Here are some thoughts on the potential legislative action. To this day, we still retrofit older buildings to withstand earthquakes. So we know there can be new laws passed to change how we build and fortify homes. I think it's safe to say we can expect some changes to building codes. In terms of the character of neighborhoods, a lot of the vegetation you see around the homes in the Santa Monica Range is non-native. Just hiking around the Hollywood Hills, I see pine trees that look like they could be in the Sierra Nevadas, and those are clearly planted here. There's no way pine trees are native to Southern California. What most of the native vegetation here is in the hills are scrub brush and a few oaks and sycamore trees. And we all love tree-lined streets and trees in our yards for shade. Whether native or not, all the plants destroyed by the fire will take many years or decades to grow back. There might even be new laws or city codes about the kind of vegetation we allow. Lastly, I think trying to restore things to return to a normal, or at least a new normal, can be very difficult. But I also think it's a built-in feature of being human. I know the vibe going around town right now is a combination of being heartbroken, but resolute. What I see is a lot of focus and determination. When the national press packs up and this story, like all stories, fade from view, I know Angelenos will continue to come together and get down to the work that needs to get done. I don't doubt that for a second. Our appreciation for first responders cannot be overstated. This was an intense and fast-moving situation. A special shout out to the numerous firefighters pouring in from other states. Your help has been invaluable. There's no question that the need is ongoing. Recovery and rebuilding is going to be a long process. Right now, though, if you'd like to chip in, be sure to check out the links in the video description below. These are vetted relief organizations, probably names you know, like Red Cross. So thanks for stopping by. Normal programming returns soon. More videos about my favorite LA neighborhoods and what it's like to live in one of the best cities on earth. I'm Tony Mariotti. See you in the next video.